I'm Rachel Turnbull. I'm the Senior Collections Conservator for Fine Art at English Heritage. This is a painting by Botticelli, or from Botticelli's workshop, of the Virgin and Child with 4 angels, and it's from the Verner collection, which is displayed at Ranger's House on Blackheath. Botticelli is a really popular artist and has been for a long time, and as a consequence of that there are lots of paintings that are maybe not by him but by later followers or copyists, and we were never entirely sure, or in recent years not entirely sure, about exactly what our painting was in terms of how close it was to him as an artist. And what we can say now, after talking to lots of experts and really examining this painting really closely in the studio, we now are fairly sure that it is definitely from the workshop of Botticelli, so made in his studio space by his assistants, perhaps not by the hand of the master himself, but we're not too worried about that. We think it was made in his workshop, and the person who purchased this work would have been buying, as far as they were concerned, a Botticelli. We used lots of different scientific approaches when we were investigating this painting. We looked very closely under the microscope before we even start, carried out an X-ray on the painting which shows the panel construction. We used infrared reflectography, which shows us the initial underdrawing, or at least some of the initial underdrawing that was done in the studio before this painting was put together. It may not have captured all of the underdrawing. There's possibly some things that we can't see, but it does show quite a lot of broad sketching out and painting in of the composition before the paint was applied. I went out to Florence to the Uffizi to see the prime version and spent a long time in the gallery in front of the picture, along with the hundreds of members of the general public, which was frankly an amazing experience to stand in front of it for so long, knowing that I had a little version of the big picture at home in the studio. If you imagine a work like this being produced in the 15th century, it wasn't something that one person could do on their own. So popular artists like Botticelli would have had a large workshop with lots of different craftsmen, maybe somebody preparing the panels, people preparing pigments, and people doing the drafting and the painting. And he wouldn't have worked on all of the pieces himself. In our case, the painting would have been made by his assistants, but it would have still been sold from that workshop as a Botticelli, and the people who bought it would have understood what that meant. They weren't paying for the most expensive piece of work, but equally they were paying for something from the Botticelli workshop. It's really interesting restoring a painting of this age from around 1480 or 1490, because you have hundreds of years of different restorations and interventions that have been made, and actually what it feels like is a kind of mini microscopic archaeology as you begin to peel back those later restorations, which have probably been made in good faith, but which are now not doing any great service to the picture, to get back as close as you can to the original intention of the artist. When you're working on a painting like this, you're with it for literally hundreds of hours, and you do become incredibly connected to it. The funny thing is, though, as a conservator, you're connected with the physicality of it, not so much the subject matter, but the brush strokes and the wood and the paint. It's really amazing to work on a painting by Botticelli. When you do art history at school or at university, it's such an iconic name, and suddenly to have one that you are really close to and working on with your own hands is quite an extraordinary experience.